Coming up on the Pheasants Forever podcast.
Iowa is set to lose about 44% of its CRP acres.
People are probably going to be like, well, that's pretty selfish, but it's
put in the work.
The people that I talked to, they ran into a lot of birds.
90% of the content you'll see out there is going to be AI generated.
This is the Pheasants Forever podcast, formerly Sporting Journal Radio, presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. All right, welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in on the radio network or by watching this on YouTube, or maybe you downloaded this on Spotify or any of the other places. I'm Bret Amundsen along with Dan Amundsen. One more show on the road, Dan.
Yeah, we'll be home by the time this one comes out, but I'm going to petition that we get chairs like this.
This is kind of nice,
home. Yeah, yours is broken.
Oh.
You can't. That's not the button.
Dang it. What is that?
That's where the tray goes.
Oh, so you can move it to either side.
Yep.
Oh, interesting.
So, look at that. Recliner fan line here for you real quick on
nice.
An outdoor show.
Well, I got a table here I can use.
That's not as good, because see, now I can just have fun. You do the show. I'm going to take a nap.
As comfortable, for sure. Well, it's been a heck of a trip. It's winding down the last few days, a little tougher than the way the trip started.
Well, it's funny. You know, I got to sit up. I can't do a radio show properly.
You could.
No, I can't think straight.
And it's the chair's fault.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
so we're clear.
Anyways, people think when you come to Canada on a duck hunting trip, or North Dakota or South Dakota or one of these famed locations, that it's just going to be easy. And there's no doubt it usually is easier than trying to hunt in the Twin Cities or Western Wisconsin or whatever. But it's not a guarantee. You still got to go to a place that has birds, and the birds move. And the area we slid down to this week, it's been real dry all summer, it's been real dry all fall, and the birds that were here are pretty stale. The honkers were acting like it was an August type situation. They were sitting in groups of 100 to 200 and were real decoy shy. There weren't a ton of snows around, weren't a ton of ducks around. We had some weather coming in, we were pretty excited, and we got the weather, and now it's like we're spring snow goose hunting. It rained, It snowed, it was windy, we lost power at this house for a little bit. And everything's soaking wet, so now we can't even get into a field. We can't get permission on a whole lot. So it hasn't been easy. We did shoot some snow geese, I guess, a few days ago, which was fun. But glad we had the week we had last week.
I don't know how many people were messaging me saying, oh, you got snow. That's going to be so awesome for you guys. And no, it's been awesome for the people south of us.
Yeah, it pushed birds.
But we ran into a situation where, some landowners wouldn't even let us walk decoys out. So now we've had, you can't hunt because it's too wet. You can't hunt because you're an American. And then we've had some that are like, heck yeah, go get them all.
Yeah, I suppose we haven't talked about the tariff thing yet, have we?
I can't remember if we talked about that last week or not.
We haven't done a show since we moved. So that's right. That's been interesting. But
let's get into that. We'll talk. Jared Wiklund from Pheasants Forever is going to join us to talk about how the pheasant opener went back home and what to expect the rest of the season. We also talk about snows with him and upland hunting from grouse and sharptail. And then Joe Henry will talk to us. We're going to talk to Joe Henry about the effects of AI on fish pictures. I bet you didn't expect that to come up in conversation, and what's going on out there. Not just fish pictures, but AI in general, how it can be good, how it can be bad, and a Rainy River fishing report too. And Lake of the Woods, actually. Fishing, shocker, been good. At Lake of the Woods. I know you're surprised, but first, who are the sponsors this week on the show?
Lake of the Woods Tourism. Plan a Lake of the Woods fishing trip for this fall or winter at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. On X Hunt, see private land boundaries, offline maps, and more. Take 20% off a new membership with code SJR20. Haybell Heights Campground and Resort. Fish Devil's Lake this winter out of a snow bear at Haybell Heights. Learn more at haybellheights.com. Tasman Lake Lodge, catch world record lake trout and giant pike at Saskatchewan's Tasman Lake. Learn more at tasmanlake.com. Prairie Sportsman, we're filming new episodes every month here. New season will kick off this spring, but you can watch episodes anytime at the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel. And Trails End Outfitters, trophy bear, walleye, and whitetails in Saskatchewan. Visit trailsendoutfitters.com.
And this segment right now brought to you by Trails End Outfitters. As Dan said, guided whitetail, black bear, open water fishing on Tobin Lake, and hard water fishing as well, and fish house rentals. I don't know why my phone is making noises. I've turned it off.
Radio professional
so
here.
many times. I don't know what it is with these new iPhones. Maybe I'm just getting old. It's possible, but
Well, thanks for the segment, Barry.
Oh, my gosh.
Thanks for bringing us this.
TrailsEndOutfitters.com for more information. And I don't know, I wasn't really planning to do this on the show, Dan, but can I just go on a little bit of a rant for a second?
It's your show.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't say yes or no. He just kind of sighed loudly.
I'm just here.
I don't know, more and more the internet and social media is just driving me crazy. And I want to apologize a little bit because, Snapchat is something I use a lot. I got a big following there. And I've had a lot of people message me like, well, where are you hunting at? I finally just had to put on there like, hey, I'm in Saskatchewan. I'm going to tell you that, but I'm not going to tell you what part of the province we're in. And I feel bad about it because people look to us for help and tips and advice, but it's one of those things. It's been a problem ever since the internet came around. Lakes are one thing, but you just can't give out waterfowl locations. Unless it's a guide service or if you just really want people to come to the area and shoot birds, if you really don't care. But if you're somebody that likes to hunt a lot, and nowadays, if you're hunting a pocket of birds and they're using one field to feed, this is kind of an overall problem in the waterfowl world right now. Everybody's got a truck and trailer surrounding the section that they're feeding in and trying to get permission, and it gets frustrating for a lot of people. So you can't be like, hey, this is where I am, because next thing you know, you got 10 more trucks and trailers showing up. And I'm all for trying to help people as much as possible, but it's a fine line there. And now you have people on the internet asking, and when somebody doesn't say something, then they get mad at them and start yelling. That's a bunch of name calling. And there's just definitely some people that love to argue on social media.
We don't want what we have to be ruined. We've developed really good relationships with a lot of landowners. We've got friends up here, and we just don't want that ruined. We don't want it to be overrun. We like our hunting. We've developed our area in a good way, and we don't want it overrun.
And it seems selfish. A lot of people are probably going to be like, well, that's pretty selfish, but it's...
Put in the work.
Put in the work. That's not a bad thing to say, I don't think. You have to spend time. We've spent a lot of money on fuel. One place that's really cool to hunt is at Lake of the Woods, especially if you want to hunt out of layout boats. And there's a guide service up there. Andy Reeves and Forrest Husett will take you out. We got to do that a couple of times. It's a lot of fun. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Lake of the Woods coming up later in the show with Joe Henry. And then, man, I'm so excited that Turnpike Troubadours are going to be at Pheasant Fest this year. How did that kind of come about? What are the details? How is that raising money for habitat, which will increase places for us to go hunting, which means that it doesn't get quite so crowded and you can grow hunting numbers and give them more places to hunt and everybody wins. We'll talk about that with Jared Wiklund. Anything else we want to talk about, Dan?
Well, you teased the tariffs, then you went on a rant.
We should talk about that too. Yeah, this trip has been amazing. That first week, Dan, was some incredible snow goose hunting experiences. We'll talk a little bit more about how this went later in the show, but I know some people have had experiences like that. I've just never seen it. Right. I've never seen it. I've never seen anybody captured on camera like that before.
Well, yeah, and it's happened, but we've had one to remember, that's for sure.
Yeah. So we had, I think, the video I'm editing right now, I think we had like 8 different cameras going or something like that at different times. So lots of footage of snow geese walking through the decoys. If you're not a snow goose hunter, this may turn you into one. Some of the footage that we got. So I can't remember if we talked about this on air, but the snowstorm came in and everybody was asking, well, where's that snow at? Where are you hunting? And this is probably bringing my conversation full circle now, is I didn't want to give out the location where we were because of what we talked about. So I just said, hey, I'm in Saskatchewan. And they're like, oh, that must be so good. Hunting must be so good because of this weather. And it's like, well, now we can't get into the fields. So we've been getting turned down on, we've got some birds around us. We just can't hunt them unless we walk, a spread in, and that gets kind of tough, and we don't want to rut up fields. The last thing you want to do is rut up a field for a farmer, because that means he'll start saying no to people next year. So just be smart when you're out there.
Well, and we talked to a local farmer that it's not like back home where all this stuff up here gets chisel plowed. Right. They're not working the fields after it's combine. So if there's ruts, now they have to go do extra work to go out and fix those ruts. It's not like back home where, you don't want to rut up a field back home, but at least it's probably going to get worked up. That's not how things work up here. Different farming practices. So.
Yeah, which are becoming more popular, I think, in a lot of areas. So, got to be a little bit more careful when you're driving through the fields. And then we did talk to one landowner that said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Well, we're up here from Minnesota, but you know, my family farmed up here. We've got roots. My grandpa was born in the province." And he's like, "Well, your president and your tariffs cost me $80,000, so I bet you can guess what my answer is going to be." And I was like, "Yeah, that's a lot of money, and I feel bad and." Thanks for your time. We'll go somewhere else. And you know, unfortunately, that guy owned a lot of land that birds were using, but that's his right as a landowner. But that's one of the challenges we're seeing up here this year.
And we're not the only ones. I sent a snap after that happened to a bunch of people I knew that were hunting in Canada, and they said, "Oh yeah, we've gotten that a couple times," and it makes me laugh. It's their way of, you know, they're upset about something political. I get it. We'd be upset too, but it just kind of made me chuckle. It's like, well, I guess we'll just go keep our American dollar back home in our own economy instead of up here helping yours. I know people make the argument that hunters may not support the economy like a local would, and whatever. That's a whole different discussion. But bottom line is,
we spend a lot of money up here.
We joke about getting a co-op number every year because we spend so much money at the co-op, whether it's gas and groceries. So yeah, I guess, well, you know, if you don't want us hunting up here, we'll just take our American dollar that you love so much in Canada.
And I don't know if we spend $80,000 up here.
No,
we
of course
definitely
not,
help support the local businesses and do what we can to treat the locals right and respect their wishes and do all that. So just be aware if you're planning to come up here, that may be one of the things that you run into.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I've probably talked nonsense enough to start this show. I do want to mention one more thing, though, here in Saskatchewan. If you're looking for trophy lake trout and northern pike fishing, check out Tasman Lake Outfitters, Tasman Lake Lodge, tasmanlake.com is the website, northwest part of the province, giant lake trout, giant pike in a really cool setting, and you can see videos from our time up there on the Tasman Lake Lodge YouTube channel. All right, Jared Wiklund from Pheasants Forever is next.
Sick of eating tagged soup? It's time to own your odds this fall with OnX Hunt, the GPS hunting app trusted by millions of hunters. Now you'll have access to nationwide public and private land ownership information, waypoints, optimal wind for each stand, tracks, and much more. All at your fingertips. Go to onxmaps.com/hunt and use code SJR20 at checkout to receive 20% off your membership. That's code SJR20.
All right, Jared Wiklund from Pheasants Forever joins us right now to talk about pheasants and the pheasant season. Jared, I always look at the pheasant opener. I mean, sometimes it can be hot, sometimes crops are in, so it's not always the best pheasant hunting of the year, but it's always a time to celebrate because to me that means everything is pretty much open. It's time to go. It's the best time of year. Hunting season is here, and actually I've heard from a fair amount of people that the opener was pretty good last weekend.
I would agree with that sentiment. The pheasant opener, it's a joyous occasion for a lot of different people, and my social feeds this past weekend were just full of, you know, people with bird dogs and birds hanging from walk-in access signs and wildlife management signs. Overall, I think it was a pretty decent opener. I talked to a lot of different people from quite a few different regions of the state, and it seemed like everybody was successful to one degree or another, which is great.
Yeah, that is great, and particularly in Minnesota, you know, in the southwest part of the state, there was a real wet year in some areas, and we had talked to some farmers. They didn't think they were going to be able to get their corn off until November, and then conditions seemed to change a little bit, or they got hailed out and just knocked their corn down. But it seemed like a lot of crops actually came out prior to the opener this year.
Yeah, I think it probably depends region by region where you are in the state. I know I didn't get out for the opener, but I got out on Monday for the holiday. And you know, around where I'm at in the Twin Cities, we have had little bit of rain. There's like my back 10 acres in the woods is flooded and those types of things. But my neighbors still have about 80 acres of corn here next to the house. And I knew it was going to be a problem when I woke up in the morning and I could hear the birds squawking out in the middle of that 80 acres. Still put up a handful of birds, but I think it depends. Minnesota, I think, is better off than maybe a few other states, particularly South Dakota. They had a really big rain event here just a couple weeks ago, and I saw a lot of washed out roads or flooded roads rather, and talked to quite a few people who said, there's some duck hunting going on in flooded fields right now, and the chances of those crops coming out, I think, anytime soon are sort of nil. But that could make for some really great late season opportunities because those fields are they're eventually gonna drain, and they're gonna sustain some birds late into the season, which is gonna be good.
Yeah, I honestly don't mind crops still standing the first few weeks of the season.
Yeah. You and I have talked a lot in the past about how we're sort of late season guys. We love going out. When the temperature drops below 32 degrees, I kind of like it in that 20, 25 degree range, a little light wind, a little snow on the ground. That's my favorite time to go. The birds they're a lot more predictable, where when it's, 60, 70 degrees and sunny, they can be just about anywhere. They're going to be where you find them. So it's a little bit different game early season, but it also is the largest pheasant population you're going to have on the landscape throughout the year.
And a lot of young birds too, of course. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. That was the other thing that popped up too. Is I know for the little bit of bird hunting that I did just in the Twin Cities metro here, the birds that I ran into, my gosh, they were young. I got up. The last bird we got up was a rooster. I don't even think he was half grown, and I didn't shoot. I knew it was a rooster because the dog pointed it, and it got up about 5 feet from me. But I just held off on shooting it. It was so young still, which goes to show that, even with the rain that we had earlier in the year, and then it kind of shut off after we got into July and August, those birds' re-nesting attempts went really, really late, which was good to see because that adds to the population as well.
Well, I was surprised when the pheasant numbers came out, the counts, because of that real wet spring. I mean, I'm sure we had some nests get washed out, in my area. So I was surprised that the bird numbers were as strong as they were when the counts came out.
You and me both. This is one of those years where, you can kind of watch weather patterns, and Iowa has really good research on it where they show like if they're under a certain amount of rain, average amount of rain and average amount of snow coming off the winter, they know that they're going to have an increase in birds. And I had a lot of people asking like, hey, what's the season looking like this year? Well, it was all looking great up until about, middle of May, and then the wheels just fell off, and we experienced the same thing that we did last year, where we just floods all over the place. So it's really hard to tell what's going to happen in a year like that. But I think this was a year of abundance. We've come off of 2 good winters in a row, and just the sheer amount of hens that we had on the landscape sort of overcame those barriers to put enough chicks on the ground that even if we're going to flood out some nests, overall, we're going to see an increase in abundance during roadside counts, which is exactly what happened.
Yeah, I mean, but the numbers, like, I can't remember. I'm trying to remember what that number was. And somebody said, I talked to him before last weekend, and I said, I'm not asking where you're going, but, like, where are you going? What geographical region? Because, we're going to the place in Minnesota that had the 50% increase in numbers or whatever it was, or the best zone. And I looked at the map, and the best zone is it was like half the state. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of dark areas on the pheasant prospect map this year, and I think too, like southeast Minnesota. I think it was southeast Minnesota. They increased almost 200%. I think it was in the 180s or something. It was just an insane amount. I talked to one of our graphic designers was hunting down there. It was a party of 3 of them, and they each shot a rooster, and a couple more got away. So they were pleased with what they were seeing, but. You got to take those in perspective, right? Because those big jumps in some of those areas, they're coming back from being really, really down, versus sort of the smaller jumps in these high density areas. The bird hunting is going to be pretty good, but specifically South Central, Southwest Minnesota, the people that I talked to, they ran into a lot of birds and a lot of hunters, which is good though, because, more hunters, more licenses we sell, that money, that's the North American model, right? That comes back and supports what we're doing for wildlife management, which is great.
Southeast region up 189%.
That's the number. Yeah. Pretty good.
Oh, it's okay. Southwest 86%, East Central 82, South Central 40, Central 33, and West Central 19%. So above the 10-year averages in every region. That's, and you do have to take some of those surveys with, a bit of a grain of salt or whatever you might want to say there, just because there's always going to be some fluctuations here and there, and they are some, they're kind of some averages, but obviously the numbers are trending in the right way. And when you see people on the ground seeing birds when they're in the field, that you can say, okay, yeah, birds are up. And we've had pretty good conditions.
It's easy to look at, weather patterns during spring, during the brood rearing season as well, like kind of your area, maybe north of there. You talked about that West Central, I think you said was 19%. And it's easy to go back and look at the, 5 to 10 inches of rain, whatever fell in that kind of 48-hour period earlier in the year, and be like, yeah, that affected the birds. Anytime you get that amount of water on the landscape, a hen just can't, if the birds are hatched and they're in that kind of 2-week period where they can't thermoregulate their body temperature, a hen is only going to be able to keep them warm for so long until they're all soaked. So those big rain events can have an impact, and hail too. We saw that in parts of Montana as well. But yeah, good habitat helps to negate some of those things, which is what we're all about.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. The habitat is good for everything year round, but when you do have those weather events, you have shelter for these birds and nesting areas where they can be a little bit more protected. I had so much corn around me this year, and it all got hailed out and then got toxic, so they had to just knock it all down. So we had corn just getting its butt kicked, and then now they're just the tractor's just driving through, knocking it all down. So it's you can't always rely on the crops being there for the food and cover for these birds. You have to have some grass by it too. So how is what's going on with, what's the latest with the farm bill? How is what are our habitat numbers like in Minnesota right now?
As far as habitat goes, it's been a good year. Through Pheasants Forever, our land acquisition work continues to just reach new heights. I think we're using donor funds and chapter funds and membership dollars, and matching that with Clean Water Land and Legacy Amendment dollars through Outdoor Heritage Fund, and still doing a ton of land acquisitions. As far as the farm bill goes, though, the farm bill, we need a new farm bill bad. Really bad. And right now, Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever has an action alert out on our website right now. We actually just we promoted it on Monday again. So if you're on social, go check out our social feeds. But we need more people contacting folks in Congress, letting them know, hey, we need a solid farm bill. CRP is part of that farm safety net for the farm economy right now is really not the best that it could be. And those acres and those incentive payments that come from Pheasants Forever and various programs help support, CRP and access. And we need a really strong farm bill in the near future. Otherwise, we can't sign up more CRP acres. So here's an awakening for you. Take a state like Iowa, for instance. They are predicted to shoot upwards of, I think it was 750,000 roosters this year, just depending on how many hunters come out. Populations are really good. Unfortunately, Iowa is set to lose about 44% of its CRP acres, almost half, in the next 3 years. Unless we get a farm bill and we start getting new enrollments here and start getting some CRP signups. So that's how important the farm bill is. Go out and enjoy this year, but just have it in the back of your mind, man, we need to be advocating. I need to be giving a voice to members in Congress and urging them to pass a new farm bill, because we're going to, if we don't have a farm bill here, we're going to start losing acres, and we're going to have no place or no way to replace them. So.
Jared Wiklund from Pheasants Forever is our guest here. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll talk more pheasants, maybe rough grouse, and probably should talk about snow geese just a little bit too, because We don't have to always be talking about pheasants with you, but we'll talk more upland when we come back.
Now is the time to start thinking about chasing big walleyes on Devil's Lake. Get on the fish at Haybale Heights Campground and Resort. Haybale Heights makes it easy for you to make memories on legendary Devil's Lake with guided fishing and lodging packages. Or bring your own boat and rent one of their cabins on East Bay. Haybale Heights offers a private marina, fish cleaning station, and the opportunity to relax and enjoy your bucket list trip to Devil's Lake, North Dakota. To book your trip, visit haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com.
Jared Wiklund from Pheasants Forever with us, and before the break, I wanted to move on from pheasants, but I think we just need to reiterate, when you mentioned before the break that Iowa's going to lose 44% of their CRP in the next 3 years, like I know North Dakota's lost a lot over the years, everybody's lost a lot of CRP acreage over the years, and but man, to lose almost half your CRP in the next couple of years in a destination state like Iowa, I mean, that's big.
It is. You don't have to go back that far in history to see how CRP really impacts bird numbers. I mean, it's the Cadillac of pheasant habitat and other upland bird habitat throughout the range. But you go back to, let's say, 2008 when we had about 42 million acres on the landscape, and then we got a new farm bill, and that number was basically knocked down to around 20 million acres and came back up to 24. Now it's on its way back up to the 27 million acre cap that's authorized here for the coming year. We're sitting okay, but again, if we don't have a farm bill and something that we can sign up acres into, it's going to be disastrous because you've got expiring CRP acres in a lot of these states, and Iowa is really the best example. You take a state like that has big pheasant hunting heritage, supports rural communities that way as well, not just landowners through CRP payments, but mom and pop stores, gas stations, hotels, restaurants, all those types of things, and that could come crashing down if we do not have a farm bill. So if you go on to Pheasants Forever's website, we've got an action center on there right now where you can just type in your information and it will automatically send a message on your behalf asking for a strong farm bill coming up here. But first we need to get the government open. We need to get through this shutdown, and we need to get a farm bill first and foremost to support grasslands conservation.
How important are some of these walk-in access programs, this PATH program that's really taken off? How important are these that in the wake of the farm bill, maybe knocking down acres, if we're losing all the CRP acreage, how important are some of these other programs?
I think they all sort of blend together. A lot of the walk-in access acres, those are CRP contracts too that have another layer of incentive added on top of those through VPA HIP, the Voluntary Public Access and Habitat Incentive Program, and then even another layer through Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever's public access to habitat program. So a lot of people remember, we started about a year and a half ago and announced it in South Dakota that we've got this extra program coming where we provide an incentive on top of all those other payments to get people into a 10-year contract to support habitat and access. That program is up to about 70,000 acres in South Dakota right now. And when you add in Nebraska, we just launched another one in North Dakota, Oklahoma, and Michigan. We're upwards of about 130,000 acres right now of new access that wouldn't have been possible without that extra incentive. So that program is growing quickly. And I know we're going to be doing some fundraisers and some online stuff coming up here in the future to support that. But yes, our PATH program has been very important for adding on new acres, and the testimonials that we're getting from landowners as well have been wonderful. It just, that extra incentive payment, it might not seem like much, it can be anywhere from $1, $2, $3 for rangeland up to $25 for really, really good CRP. But it all comes together. Like, for instance, we just signed up a couple weeks ago, we signed up a 30,000 acre enrollment in South Dakota and walk-in access. Just try to wrap your mind around that. 30,000 acres open for open for 10 years, and it is full of pheasants and sharptails and all sorts of other critters that, upland hunters and hunters in general want to go out and chase. So the landowner's happy because he's getting an extra payment for that ground that he wasn't getting before. Hunters are happy. Local restaurants are happy because there's a bunch of people flooding out there to go and walk those acres, which is really cool.
That was one landowner?
That was one landowner. Wow. Yep.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, we really like those big acreages, sort of that contiguous acreage that will remain in habitat. And a lot of these different programs per state, they're all a little bit different depending on which state you're going to for this PATH program. But I think the overarching goal is that, when you show up to these parcels, you're going to see quality habitat and access that's there when you're trying to hunt. And that's important for, I know a lot of hunters, in the past, we've gotten messages at Pheasants Forever like, hey, I show up to this walk and access and it's hayed off, or whatever the case may be. A lot of our programs through PATH can get past that because we're paying landowners like we should for access to quality hunting on their private lands. But in return, that quality habitat remains there and is always there, especially when the birds need it during nesting season and during the hunting season.
Well, I've said it many times, the best way to recruit hunters and keep the sport alive is access to quality hunting experiences, which comes from quality habitat and all the right ingredients being put together. I missed the opener last week in the pheasant opener, and it would have been nice to be out there. But Jared, I don't know if you've seen any of our stuff on the Fish Hunt Forever, Instagram, or I'm sure you're a big TikTok guy, and then also on
always
YouTube and Facebook. But the snow goose hunting we had, it's been a little tougher since we got this storm here for us. But the snow goose hunting we had the first week of this trip up here in Saskatchewan, man, has been it's been insane.
I saw a couple of pictures of like 2, 3, 4, or maybe a couple hundred birds. It looked. Yeah, keep going. It looked pretty phenomenal. And are you starting to see a goose push right now? Because both up at my cabin in my backyard here in the Twin Cities with some of these cornfields and stuff coming off. I mean, just before we started the podcast today, there was a huge flock of geese that just flew over the house, and the dogs were barking at them. Are you seeing that similar push with some of this colder weather? I mean, we went from 85 degrees and sunny here, a week or so ago to it's 49 and rainy right now.
Everybody I've talked to up here in Saskatchewan said it's been a weird year and said it was one of the hottest. We talked to some waterfowl outfitters. We talked to some whitetail guys, some different just locals. And they said, like elk hunters, they said the elk season up here has been real tough just because of how warm it's been. I mean, the September was 20. So it was 25 in Canada, or 80 for us Americans up here, pretty much all September. So you've got no migration. You've got Canada geese staying in, small family groups or staying in the water, maybe only feeding one time a day. Everybody I talked to said mallards were bouncing from water to water, and the snow geese just really weren't. They had no reason to push. And then once early October hit, things started to get a little bit colder up on the tundra. Birds started to come down a little. And even then, we had some warm days in October, which has always been the case. If you want to look at the splits in Minnesota for the waterfowl season, I know some guys hate that stuff, but every year, I'd love to see a historical weather chart about the first 2 weeks in October, the last 10 years, and see what those average temperatures were, because I remember during the splits seeing some 90-degree temperatures in October, and nothing moves when that happens. So this last week, we had a pretty good storm rip through Saskatchewan. A lot of wind, a lot of rain, and then it turned into snow. So overnight, we probably got 3-4 inches of snow, heavy, wet snow, and it just turned all the roads to mush. You couldn't drive out into the fields. Farmers, our hunting pretty much came to an end. So many people on Snapchat saw the snowstorm like, oh man, that's got to be great for waterfowl hunting. And it's like, yeah, hunting in storms can be really good. It can induce a migration, but if you can't
the access,
if you can't get into the fields, like we sat there yesterday, we found a big snow goose feed, and the farmer wouldn't let us on it, and they were right up to the road. And for anybody following the snow goose migration this year, it was an incredible juvie hatch. So we beat up a lot of juvies on this trip and had them landing on our blinds, sleeping 10 feet away from us in the field. We got just some, it was just an amazing experience. We got another video coming to our YouTube channel here, hopefully in the next couple of days. And so these birds are real dumb. And this pocket that we found yesterday, there were actually more adults than we've been seeing with them, but they were still feeding right up to the road. So we were kind of talking to the landowner, like, we won't drive out there. Can we just walk decoys out? Hunt the road edge, basically. There's some grassy fingers. Can we just hike out, 40 yards out into the field and set up on the edge of this grass? And they didn't even want us walking out there, which I totally understand. It's fine. But today I drove by them just to see what they were doing. They were literally sitting in the approach of the field, like where you would drive into the field. They were just basically almost on the road in the approach, just taunting
Yeah, that's pretty
us.
close to the road.
God dang. So it's been a little frustrating, but it was just Dan and I hunting, and for 8 days we hunted this pocket of, 5,000 juvies or something like that. And they basically stayed in a section for 8 days while we were up there. And we bounced around and hunted them 6 out of those 8 days. And it was some of the most incredible snow goose hunting we've both been a part of. And we sat for most of the time, and just about every morning they were coming before legal shooting time, all of them. So in the dark, you've got snow geese squawking within a few feet of you, just walking around. And we're sitting there with our blind doors open. I left Tiny in the truck for a couple of those hunts, or else this never would have happened. But
Dog just going nuts.
Yeah, she'd have freaked. Sitting there with our doors open, with cameras up, with our faces are getting lit up a little bit. I mean, I've got one video. One morning we hunted, and we had 8 snows stay in the Dan and I shot a limit, which is 20 per person. So we shot our 40 snows. And the entire time there were 8 snow geese that literally just hung out in the decoys and slept, like as we're shooting over them, slept about 10 feet away from us. Like clearly had no idea what was going on.
That's when you know they're really dumb.
we basically had names for them. They were kind of our pets, and we felt bad. We didn't shoot them at all. We let them go. But
Let me ask you a question. I know you guys do a lot more waterfowling than I do. I'm just sort of a passive waterfowler around here. I've shot a wood duck and a goose this year and a few others. But are you seeing in some of those big flocks up there, particularly snow geese, did avian flu have a big impact on them in one way or another for their numbers, or is like they just reproduce so fast it doesn't even matter?
So it had a huge impact, and you'll see it, I'm sure, this fall as they get down into the States. Last few years in the spring and fall in the Dakotas, you'll see dead snow geese around, staging areas and big lakes and things like that. And I don't think we've seen any up here. A couple of people have asked me that because they're like, oh, those geese are just sick. They're not, no, they're just young and not very smart. But I think they've really just started to group up when the weather turns. They're out there feeding. There's still probably a lot of them near each other, but they're out there in family groups feeding. And then just like Canada's, as the migration starts to take place, they start to funnel together. And then as they travel down the corridors, they end up hanging out in real tight, close quarters, I think, quite a bit more. And so you'll see it. And some people say that the numbers, I think about 10 years ago, I think they estimated that central flyaway population of lesser snow goose to be around 30 to 35 million. Now, it's real hard to get an accurate count on them, but there was lots. And they're thinking now that population, I don't know, I haven't heard the last estimate, maybe 15 million or something like that, but they think that the avian influenza has had an impact. I don't know if hunting has really had an impact, but weather and disease. In fact, Texas even closed their spring snow goose season now, and that whether that's because of lower numbers or it's just shifting flyways. Birds I don't think are migrating as far south as they used to. So it's hard to research those snow geese.
I have a vivid recollection of, I didn't hunt last year because I blew my ACL out playing soccer, like a dumbass in my late 30s, just trying to stay in shape and stuff. But back this year, doing a lot of hunting. But 2 years ago, we were in January in South Dakota. And I remember in the Glacial Lakes region up there, just like you said, like we're doing late season pheasant hunting. There's snow on the ground. And there are a couple different lakes up there where the geese were just scattered in the ice, and you could just tell like there's been a bunch of crows and coyotes and everything else out there feeding on them. But it was a gruesome sight. But I don't know. On one hand, it's like we need to lower the snow goose population. On the other hand, it's like you never want to see them go that way.
Right. It's terrible, but it is also Mother Nature's way of kind of, hey, hunters, you were supposed to shoot some more of these things. I guess I'll take care of it from here, type of situation. So
maybe you guys just need to bring like another person or two from Forest Lake, Minnesota, up there with you, honey.
You're welcome to join us anytime. I
just invited myself. I
invited so many people on this trip. If I didn't invite you, I apologize. I feel like I probably did, because I invited so many people on this trip and we couldn't get anybody to come up here. And it was just one of the most unreal snow goose hunting experiences. For anybody, and I know you've done this, but for anybody that has sat usually in a spring snow goose spread, probably in South Dakota, and just sat there all day, maybe baking in 80-degree heat or wallowing in the mud or whatever the case may be, and just watched every single snow goose flock get to the decoy spread and then go psh, like this, and be like, meh, and suffered through the agony of being a snow goose hunter, you would have flipped out with what we did last week up here. Like it was so cool.
I can imagine it. Yeah, I enjoyed the pictures. I mean, those were some big piles of snow geese.
Yeah, well, and it was just the two of us, So we 40 was our limit to shoot, but we could have shot. I mean, I don't know. We could have, just the two of us, if we had our plugs out and whatever. I mean, we could have shot hundreds. It was pretty cool. So we got one video on the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel. Another one a couple more coming, but another one I've almost finished up editing. Since I haven't been able to hunt the last couple of days, we've been sitting here on the computer just doing some editing and getting ready for that. And Jared, last year when we were up here, we actually did a little bit of grouse hunting too, and we were thinking about doing that again, and then we ran into this winter storm, and we just haven't had a chance to do any grouse hunting. How are the grouse hunters doing back home so far this year?
I think okay. I had a few guys up in Wisconsin, and they each shot their first grouse. I would say that populations aren't quite what I thought they were going to be, just based on drumming counts. But a lot of people, I think, understand that, drumming counts is one thing, but then trying to get through the spring season and through the hatch, like that's something totally different. So those don't always align. I will say that I have seen and heard a lot of anecdotal stories of people getting into more grouse here, especially after, I think that hot weather kind of held on to the leaves pretty long. But then we had, 30 and 40 mile an hour winds here, kind of 2 weekends in a row. Plus we've had some rain and a little bit cooler weathers on the backside of the 85-degree temps that we have. A lot of leaves dropped, and grouse are just more visible now. It was a lot of, I walked 9 miles and got bit by mosquitoes, and I flushed 9 birds and I only saw one of them, to like I've seen people harvesting limits now, on a single walk, which is cool. And that's I think northeast Minnesota still reigns supreme as far as Minnesota grouse hunting goes. There's a lot of timber up there. There's a lot of cuts, and that's just as good as you can get for world-class grouse hunting. Woodcock's been good. They're starting to come down now, even just after the last cold blast we had. I noticed quite a few woodcock migrating down as well. I think it's going to be really good the next couple days. I'm going to be up in northwest Wisconsin, hunting with one of our longest tenured employees named Jim Woolley, who we're doing a build a wildlife area at after down in Iowa. And he's like, I haven't gone after woodcock for 20 years. So he's pretty excited.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm excited to get up there and just, as much as I love the prairie, and I love getting out after pheasants, there's just something about the grouse woods and the sights and the smells. It's just, it's another next level experience, whether it's, sit in a blind and have that many snow geese come down, right, or rough grouse and woodcock, or a frosty morning for pheasants when you you know that you watched them all go from feeding into this field, and it's stacked, and you're ready to go. So it's a good feeling. I'm ready to get back out.
It's go time. I was surprised. We were over in Eau Claire for the Aglow conference, 21st to the 25th of September, I guess. And Ben Bredigan from OnX came out and was part of the conference this year, and Joel Nelson too. But Ben went and did some grouse hunting, took some people out, and they bumped into some woodcock while they were over there, and a couple of grouse too. Obviously, a lot of leaves were still up at that time, but I was impressed with how well they did, shooting a few birds and seeing some woodcock while they were over there that week. And we did go to there was a game farm, and I don't do a lot of game farm stuff anymore, but I figured, Tiny hadn't had a chance to be out yet, so I just brought her and basically ran Tiny for some of the other guys that there were some guys that we walked with that are big in the outdoor industry, but just don't live in any pheasant country, so they'd never shot pheasants before, and so I got to watch them shoot some pheasants. And we had the guide that was there had 2 pointers with, and then so we were able to get them to point, and then we'd send in Tiny to flush them. And actually, Tiny pointed a couple of birds, which I'm not sure if she was pointing because her grandpa Boone, Corey Loeffler's dog, had some pointer training, or if the birds were just holding so tight in some thick cover that she was just like, why aren't these birds flying right now? She's just kind of locked up on them.
I think sometimes naturally for labs, especially when they get into really thick cover, I watched my dog do it on Monday out behind my house here, where it flushed a couple of young hens and then the young rooster that got up. I figured there was one there somewhere, and she kept going and going and going and did just one of those natural staring down into a hole of grass, Yeah. And I'm like, well, if that's a rooster, he's toast. But I ended up just letting him go because he was pretty young.
Oh, sure. Well, we should mention, before I let you go, Jared, we should mention the band I've been listening to the most, honestly, probably for the last couple of years, but particularly in the last year, has been Turnpike Troubadours. And I'm a kind of a big music guy. It was a big part of my life for a long time, and gone to many, many concerts, and had not had the chance to see Turnpike yet. So when you guys announced that they were coming for Pheasant Fest next year, I had a minor freakout session. That is a pretty cool deal, man.
Yeah, we're really excited to announce Turnpike Troubadours as our concert for conservation. It's going to be live at the State Theater on Thursday, February 19th at 7:30 p.m. Public tickets are on sale now. They had sort of their fan club was able to buy them. Members were able to buy them, and we've got the public on sale that just started last week. So I think more than half the tickets are already gone. It's going to be a real intimate concert. We didn't quite get the stage that we wanted, so we had to sort of switch venues and can fit a few less people in there. So tickets are a little bit higher price than they have been in the past, but I think they're still doable for a lot of people, and it's really to support grassland conservation efforts. So we're excited to have them. Dave Simonette, Dead Man Winter, and as part of Trampled by Turtles is going to be the opening act, and I just think it's going to be pretty fun. Actually, right before I hopped on this call, I got a look at sort of the merchandise and the shirts and the posters and stuff we're going to be selling. It's going to knock people's socks off. It's a pretty cool piece of art to celebrate sort of our concert for conservation. So maybe I'll get some to you for a future show, and you can give them out. They're going to be it's pretty neat.
I appreciate that. So how does that work? I mean, tickets were a little spendier. I ended up getting some a little further back than I wanted to, but when you look at the layout of the venue, I don't think there's going to be a bad seat in the house at that place. So No, there will not. If you're looking for tickets right now, it's pheasantsforever.org /concert for conservation. It's listed all over our website and on our blog, so people can check that out. But you go to the landing page and you click on the buy tickets, and you can check out the venue and the map to kind of see where things are at. But like I said, it's going to be a very intimate concert. They got a nice set list planned, and I think we continue to set a high bar for this concert for conservation. It's going to be our third year, and it's raised a lot
lot of money for upland bird habitat, which is what we're all about.
So that's what I was going to ask. How are you? Like, are some of the ticket sale proceeds going to conservation? How's that work?
Yeah. Basically the whole thing. So we work with Pepper Entertainment, who has helped us sort of line up some of these bands and whatnot. And we come to an agreement with the band on ticket prices and what percentage of that. Obviously, there's costs with venue and right. Those types of things. But yeah, this Concert for Conservation has raised $200,000 in the last 2 years that we've done it. We did it in Sioux Falls with Trampled by Turtles, and then last year in Kansas City with Muscadine Bloodline, which was an awesome concert as well. And I would just expect that there's a lot of fans here of Turnpike Troubadours, not just our members and employees, but I just think in Minnesota and the upper Midwest as a whole, it's sort of a vibe right now, as you mentioned, like as a current listener. So they were just on CBS Sunday Morning here a few years ago, or a few weeks ago, talking about sort of their comeback to music and sort of what the lead singer has gone through, and it's a pretty inspiring story. They play to the hearts and minds of bird hunters, and that's one of their songs.
That place, when that fiddle kicks in for the bird hunters, and I hope they don't open with it. I could see them opening with it. I hope they don't. I hope it's at the end, because that place is going to go ballistic when they play that song.
Cool. It's an exciting time for people that are coming. I'll be working the merchandise booth again this year. Stop by, say hi. We can hook you up with some Turnpike Troubadours merch, and it's going to be a fun concert. So come on over and grab a cocktail and just enjoy raising money for a really good cause.
Can't wait. Let's have you on again. We'll talk more about Pheasant Fest as we get closer. Jared Wiklund, Pheasants Forever. Thanks for being on the show, and good luck grouse hunting.
Sounds good. Thanks, Brett. Good luck up there in Canada.
If you want to catch a big walleye, go where the big walleyes are. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital of the world, with a variety of resorts and lodging facilities offering full-service fishing. Lake of the Woods is also home to sturgeon, sauger, perch, trophy pike, muskie, smallmouth bass, burbot, and more. Plan your trip to Lake of the Woods today. Go to lakeofthewoodsmn.com. That's lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Joe Henry joins us now from Lake of the Woods Tourism to talk about fishing up on the big lake and some other interesting topics in today's modern world. Joe, how's it going?
Hey, Brett, I'm doing good. Boy, I tell you, you're still up in Canada, aren't you?
Yeah, it's been we're coming home finally for this weekend. Dan's got a fundraiser he's got to be at, and I got to be at the Emmy Awards Saturday night. But yeah, we've been up here for, almost 3 weeks, I suppose, 2.5 weeks, something like that. It's been a pretty epic trip.
Some of the content you guys are getting is just phenomenal. I just love looking at it. And being that I can't be laying in a ground blind with deafening snow goose sounds with you, it is really cool to take a little break throughout the day and watch those clips of those geese coming upon you guys. It is just so cool. The call of the wild, looking at your decoy spreads, where you set up, listening to those sounds. It's just cool. And it makes me think too, number one, kudos to you for getting nominated for some Emmys again. And also the stuff that you're doing now, that's probably what's going to be a part of an Emmy nomination next year. You're getting the content, aren't you?
Yeah, but I know other people have experienced what we experienced up here. I know other people have filmed it. I've never seen it. And I've hunted snows for a long time and hunted them hard. I've never experienced what we got to experience, and it's a lot of young birds, and people are like, oh, those are just juvies. They don't know any better. And it's like, yeah, well, that's kind of what you want. That's what you're always going for. And we were probably sitting in one of the very first fields that these juvies have ever seen in their lives. So, there were times we had the truck and the trailer in the field, and they were still trying to land in the decoys as we were picking them up. I know one morning I was walking, I had parked the truck, and Dan was setting decoys in the dark because they were coming half hour before legal shooting time, which is you can shoot half hour before sunset, and these birds are coming a half hour before that. So sunrise. So an hour before sunrise, birds were already coming into the decoys. So we had to get out there real early. So, as we're struggling to drink as much coffee as we can and get the decoy spread set, I had parked the truck and I was walking back in the dark. And when I got back, I was talking to Dan and he wasn't wearing his headlamp. And I told this story, I think last week on the show or whatever, but he's like, yeah, there's some geese that landed in the decoys. And I was like, oh, I thought that's why maybe you didn't have your headlamp on. He goes, well, I don't know where it is right now. But these geese had, like 6 geese had landed in the decoys. So I stopped and kind of tried to look around and I listened. I didn't hear or see anything. So I just went out there and was setting decoys. Well, I had my headlamp on and all of a sudden I shined across a snow goose sitting there feeding right next to me. And then, I walked up on all these snow geese and they just didn't care. Like, snow geese can be some of the hardest birds to hunt. But when they're young like that and they're juvies, they're some of the easiest. And we just had some amazing experiences with it. So,
I don't know if I told you a story, but for a while I was going up to Boissevain, Manitoba, and we would snow goose hunt. And I remember the one night I was with some of my buddies and we're staying in this hotel, and I remember they had a steak, bud, and a spud for $10 Canadian, and that's when the exchange rate was real good. So of course we'd have a little bit of fun in that hotel bar, but we'd be going back to our hotel room and windy and cold, and those snows are flying over our head at the hotel. I remember the next morning we didn't get much sleep, and we were having a lot of fun. So you can imagine how that next morning was. I remember my buddy was going to sleep in, it's whipping cold. I'm like, Jimmy, you got to get up, Jimmy, get up. This is why we're here. It's freaking blowing out. Those birds are going to be fighting the wind. They're going to be coming in. So we got out there and we set up decoys in this field, and we're tired and maybe just our brain wasn't quite right, if you know what I mean. And we were setting up decoys and everything else, and our head was pounding, and it's windy and it's cold. We lay down in our blinds and didn't get a shot all morning. So, when you talk about how good it is right now, how many times have you gone out and worked your tails off with all the best decoys and everything else, and it hasn't worked out? And now you can't do anything wrong.
Yeah, it was wild. We hunted those same birds, and we talked a little bit with Jared about this, but we hunted those same birds 6 out of 8 days, and I think most of them finally left when we did that area, that region of Saskatchewan. But we just lucked out, and I couldn't believe, like, every time we'd hunt them, I'd say something to the camera like, well, this might be the last chance we get at these birds. And then we'd scout that night and they'd be back again. And so we had a pretty neat experience with them up there. And, we've posted some of that content. Like, we've got so much material for shorts and reels and TikToks and all that good stuff, and then some longer form stuff for YouTube that we're putting out. And we've had a few people be like, oh, that's AI. Obviously that's AI. That would never happen. And it's like, this is, we're getting into that day and age, Joe, where you almost have to look for some stuff. Like, I saw one this morning, a guy, he was sitting on the toilet, but the toilet lid was closed. He had his pants on. So he was just sitting in the bathroom on the toilet. There was a window above him, like a bathroom window, sometimes those small windows about this big. And next thing I know, this deer jumps through it, which would never happen. First of all, he'd never fit. But then he grew antlers when he came through the window. And but if the casual, swiper is just be like, oh, that's great. Nowadays, nothing shocks you on the internet, of course. You're like, oh, look, a deer jumping around in the bathroom. Okay. And clearly AI, and first thing I did is went to the comments and was like, okay, well, it's funny how he grew antlers after he came through the window, so AI's got some work to do, but the future is going to be kind of weird on the internet, Joe.
Well, and by the way, don't feel bad. The same thing happens to me. I mean, we'll put out a good video of a big fish and, AI, or the other one I get all the time is Photoshopped. Oh, and I'm like, we don't use Photoshop, and I don't even hardly put it in the comments anymore, because all you're going to do is get people fired up and they're going to argue with you. But, I'll tell you, that's where I think I saw a stat recently that said, like, maybe it's in 2026, 90% of the content you'll see out there is going to be AI generated. And crazy. This expert in AI and social media had said that's an opportunity for people that are doing it right and putting out authentic content, because the AI and the scrubbers and all the good stuff, they're going to know that, and it's going to reward you with more views, things like that, because you are putting out authentic content that's real, and they can tell the difference. So I think, like anything in life, if it's too easy, it probably isn't good. And that's the way I feel about AI. Not to say that AI isn't a good tool and it can't save you time and help you become more efficient at things, but you got to kind of pick and choose what you use it for, and how authentic do you want your brand to be. I know at Lake of the Woods Tourism, the stuff we put out is authentic. Yeah, we put out some pretty darn big walleyes that look like they're freaks and that look like they're AI created, but we don't Photoshop our images or anything else. At best, I might take an image if it's a little bit dark and just lighten it up a little bit, but we never change the size of the fish or anything. And,
And Photoshop is used everywhere now. Every good photographer edits their photos a little bit. And some fishing photographers will use a wide angle lens, and that's where you'll get the people who think it's Photoshopped, and you're enhancing, I shouldn't even say that word. You're focused on the fish, and then because of the wide angle distortion, the person behind it ends up looking so small that people look at it right away, and they're used to the old Polaroids of grandpa, holding probably a 10-pound walleye and a stringer, and it goes from his hip to his shoulder, and that's how I know how big it is. Well, you can't do that anymore because of the advancements in camera technology. So people think that your photo. I used to get accused of it all the time, that I kind of stopped using some wide-angle lenses for that very reason. But then I'd always tell people, look, first of all, I don't care what you think. It's a cool-looking picture. It's 29 inches. I put it in the caption, and then we also filmed it. So if you want to see something without that wide angle look to it, just watch the video, and you'll probably see us put it on a bump board. But the internet has made people the internet is full of people that just like to complain and troll and find something wrong with every single post out there. So the best thing you can do nowadays is either not engage with them or just be like, hey, dude, here's the truth, and if you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I think the other thing too is, as a viewer, as a consumer of information on social media, on the web, whatever, know your brand too, and that's where, Lake of the Woods Tourism or Fish Hunt Forever. I mean, I think over time, we've been doing it long enough, and people know who we are. I mean, we're in many cases trusted resources, I would hope. And if you know who's behind it, it gives you a little more confidence too if you ever do question something. Now, if you don't recognize the source, I mean, in fact, some of these sources, I'm like, that looks like it's AI generated. And it might even say that in the description.
Yeah. Well, and you get bots too, and whatever, and you get weird people comment, and sometimes it's in a different language, so you just like, okay, whatever, doesn't matter. But there are people out there. I saw a post today from someone, I'm not going to name it or say what the post was about, but it was just like, he was just going out of his way to be a jerk on the internet, and some people just enjoy it. And it's like, I guess if that's what gets you through the day, bud, have at her. It's not what I like to do. It's not what I enjoy reading or seeing on the internet, but you do you. And you brought up a point that I was going to say, and it's knowing the source, and the fact that I've been to Lake of the Woods so many times and caught big fish up there. Like I know that when you put something out, you're not lying about it.
We give an example. We just had the Chili Bowl. Borderview Lodge has that fall fishing tournament on the Rainy River only called the Chili Bowl, and some really nice walleyes were caught. I mean, our river isn't loaded with walleyes like it's the big fall run yet, just because we haven't had the cold weather. We do have some shiners in the river, and we do have some walleyes in the river that have started, and they actually got some really darn nice walleyes. Some, with a nice average. I can't remember if the average was 4 or 5 pounds per fish or something in the river, but just anyway, nonetheless, very, very nice fish. They also got some big ones too that made that average a little bigger. But that's been going good. And I'll tell you the other thing that's going good is I saw, when we put a post up about the Chili Bowl, one of the guys I know who's a guide, but he also fishes just for fun. He said fishing's 50 times better on the lake. Well, he's over on the kind of off a Long Point area there. And there are some nice schools of walleyes staged off that South Shore. I mean, you get out there and find one of those schools and you jig. You could have that 100 fish day if you hit it right. And I'll just mention the Northwest angle. I always got to mention the angle. Going up there this time of year, now you're going to whack your walleyes. That water's getting colder. I think the water temp most recently when I looked at it was about 50. Gosh, I think it was mid-50s or so, which actually dropped quite a bit. But boy, some different spots in the angle. Not only are they getting their good numbers of walleyes, but they're also getting some beefy pike. They're getting some big crappies, jumbo perch like we caught last winter up at the Northwest Angle with those big shoulders on them, and really kind of a neat mixed bait. It's a cool time. It's a fun time up at Lake of the Woods right now.
Oh yeah. Well, I would love to be up there right now. I can't complain about where I'm at, but it's always a good time at Lake of the Woods any time of year. And if people want to get a trip planned, maybe a quick trip up there yet this fall, or start thinking about winter, which they do, Joe.
Hey, check out our website, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Thanks for listening to the Fish Hunt Forever show. Download the Fish Hunt Forever podcast wherever you get podcasts, or watch on the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel. If you like today's show, please give us a 5-star review. Find past shows, articles, news about regulations, and more at fishhuntforever.com.